All right, should be good now for the Zoom. Good evening, everyone. Thank y'all so much for coming out. We are so excited to get this conversation started. We need 2 more minutes just to, we try to do too much. We got to take stuff, we have to go around the world trying to be a part of the conversation. But we appreciate y'all being here during this time. We might ask you to come up a little bit so we can have a more intimate conversation and just circle up and be a family for a moment. But in 1 or 2 minutes, we about to get right started. Thank y'all so much. I'm Dr. Warren Hartman, visiting from Chicago. So happy to be here. Excited to be in space with y'all tonight.
Wow. So everybody can see how much they cost. Exactly.
I'm sorry. I'm very demanding today. Can we maybe even circle up even? Can we close this loop if that's possible? Can we get some people to help move the chairs to have a real actual?
Yeah, because our ancestors never been looking at each other's back. They've been looking at their faces. So let's move it. Let's all cooperate to pull. Did I use the word cooperate? That sounds so Guyanese.
You guys, you know what you have because I sit down right here because I get distressed. And I can't move far and I can't move fast. So when they call me up, I have to say chance. Yep, very close to that.
It looks like it's.
Grab a clear center circle. You know what happened to you know what happened to the people that will stay center circle happens, you know, that then they get hit. Which one is over there? I tell Kita can't go far nor fast, so make I stay right here. They go open up.
Yeah, but here's the issue. Yeah. That's fine. Well, no, it's well. I'm sure.
So you have to stay at center circle. Yeah. They could let you go sit down behind them.
Right.
Bye.
Like this.
Good evening. Good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah, that's better.
That's right.
It's good to hear the energy. It's good to hear each of you. And again, thank you for being here and for coming to join us in this very interesting discussion on cultural perspectives on mental wellness, a community conversation. Before we begin, I would like to do some housekeeping. Please remember to put your phones on silent. Also, we have our restrooms in the building of the library. You can, well, actually, it's just about probably 2 minutes from here, that building right there in that direction, if you need to use the restroom. So we are here to discuss on mental wellness, and I want to welcome all of you. It's good to see you, Miss Emily. Good to see you. We've been collaborating with these organizations for the past probably 2 months, Miss Irving?
Yes.
2 months. So we had a discussion on human rights previously, a very, very interactive and very engaging workshop where we learned how to dance. What was it? I can't even remember. It was for me, it's Al Punta, you see, and I need to understand it properly, right? It was what?
Hugu, hugu.
Hugu hugu. So we learned to dance and also sing. So that was a very good workshop, and I hope that now Ms. Irving can also guide us in some of that dancing, because that also encompasses wellness. Right? That's also about wellness. So good evening, esteemed colleagues, distinguished guests, and valued audience in this building, and also those who are watching us online. I would like to, on behalf of the President and also the Intercultural Indigenous Language Institute, welcome you and also the Ancestral Institute to the University of Belize and the Student Development Center. As the national institution of higher learning, the University of Belize serves as a space for important discussion on development and the evolving concept of Belizeanness. Today, we gather to engage in a timely and important dialogue on the intersection of culture and mental wellness. Mental wellness is not a universally defined or experienced concept. Rather, it is profoundly shaped by cultural values, belief systems, and social norms. While Western frameworks often conceptualize mental wellness and illness through a clinical lens, emphasizing internal or biomedical imbalances, many of our communities interpret mental and emotional struggles through spiritual, familial, and communal worldviews. We must recognize the vast cultural variability in how mental wellness is perceived, diagnosed, and treated. Practices such as smudging, prayer, and sacred rituals continue to be important in the well-being of many cultural groups. This forum provides a space for nurturing intercultural understanding, honoring the ways of diverse traditions, contributing to healing and resilience. In Belize, it is crucial that we continue to foster peace and spaces for dialogue and exchange that strengthen our connection across cultures and communities. There is also a growing recognition of the need to integrate indigenous and cultural knowledge systems into academic and scientific discourse. RU proposes the concept of the co-production of knowledge, referring to a process that brings together distinct knowledge systems, such as indigenous and cultural knowledge and scientific epistemologies, in a relationship grounded in equity and mutual respect. This collaborative approach seeks to generate new insights, deepen understanding, and co-create culturally relevant solutions. In this context, the Intercultural Indigenous Language Institute, the University of Belize, POWER, and the Ancestral Institute must play a key role in promoting culturally relevant and competent conversations on mental wellness. Equipping students with cultural competence, including humility, awareness, cross-cultural communication skills, is essential for fostering inclusive and effective care. Such engagement allows us to challenge dominant narratives, dismantle stigma, and uplift diverse mental wellness paradigms that are often marginalized in mainstream discourse. Addressing mental wellness through a cultural lens is both a moral responsibility and a professional necessity. As we confront global health disparities, migration, and the complexities of identity, we are called to develop frameworks that respect cultural differences while advancing equity in care. May today's conversation serve as a catalyst for reimagining how we teach, research, and practice mental wellness, grounded in empathy, inclusivity, cultural intelligence, and relevance. With that, I would like to welcome you to the University of Belize and also open our first discussion, inviting Dr. Antoine Craigwell to come and share some words about the Ancestral Institute. Let's give him a round of applause.
Thank you very much for that welcome, Delma.
Just one slight correction there. I am not a doctor. You're about to have me get jailed. All right, you're about to have me, somebody come up and say, can you help me? Can you diagnose? I'm like, no, we're not doing that. So my name is Antoine Cradwell, as Delmar was introducing. And one of the things I think that was important about what Delmar was just talking about was the ways in which we pull and fuse ancestral healing rites and practices with our contemporary psychology, so that we can look and see, what does it look like? How can we, Black and people of color, identify with mental health care that is for us, that looks like us, that speaks like us? And so, let me tell you a little bit about the Ancestral Institute, how we got here in Belize this afternoon. It's a very long journey, but a short one as well. So, how did we get here? Who is the Ancestral Institute? How did it start? The impetus and the inspiration and the focus and concentration. I have been doing work in mental health for many years. I am not a mental health clinician. As a matter of fact, it was my own suicide attempt that propelled me to focus on mental health, because there was nothing that I could identify with. I once had a white Jewish therapist who, after listening to my story and some of the things that happened in my life, said to me, "You're damaged goods." Okay, this is all part of the therapy session. However, I was able to pick up some things from what he was saying that I found that I could use for my healing. And I discovered in my search that there was nothing that truly addressed my mental health that I could look to and identify with. So I started doing a lot of work since about 2008, 2009, going all around the US talking about mental health. In 2012, I did a documentary called "You Are Not Alone." And out of that documentary in 2012, I started an organization in 2013. And in 2014, my organization's board decided that we need to expand beyond just Black LGBT, just Black gay men. Because Black gay men, we knew, were taking their lives and struggling with depression and suicide more than the wider population. Because we were also seeing higher rates of HIV among Black gay men. And why were they contracting HIV at such high numbers? And so my organization decided we'll start a conference that's focused on the mental health for LGBTQ Black and people of color. It celebrated 10 years last year. This year, we're working on focusing on veterans' mental health. But in 2022, I thought to myself, after listening to stories from people, many of them said that I don't go for therapy. I don't believe in it. Or when I go for therapy, the therapist doesn't understand me. I go once, I go twice, the therapist doesn't get me. So I start going. And I'm thinking to myself, most of the therapists, if you look at the demographics in the US, most of the Black and people of color therapists are a very small percentage. In the US, it's predominantly white therapists. And it occurred to me that how can we be talking about white, Western European and American psychology to Black and people of color? Clearly, that's where the disconnect has come in. Clearly, Black and people of color have their own sense of themselves that the white psychology cannot reach. And I used to argue that for as long as humans have walked the face of the earth, we've always struggled with our mental health. And our ancestors over millennia devised rites, rituals, practices, foods, language, music, dress, dance. They devised and perfected and honed and refined ways of taking care of themselves and each other. And it was only then in the last 500 to 600 years that from among us, Black and people of color, that it was excised from us. It was removed from us. Many of us can remember, if we think about our ancestors, how many of our ancestors had their tongues removed because they were singing a song to their ancestors. How many of our ancestors were killed? And so 500 to 600 years later, when we are struggling with our mental health, we keep it quiet. We perhaps don't even know what it is, mental health, because we dare not ask the question. Because we have been forbidden. Our mother says, listen, why keep quiet? Don't let anybody know. We don't want the master to know that you're not doing it. God, the master can take you away. And so we hide our sons and our daughters so that the master don't find them. Oh, they gonna run in, they gonna walk in, they gonna put a walk. And so it came to my mind that there needs to be something to create, to connect us with our ancestors, to help us tap back into what is right now in each of you sitting here in your DNA, to tap into it, call on your ancestors and say, come, tell me, come show me, come guide me, come protect me. That is where the Ancestral Institute was born. And we started online in 2022. And when we devised this institute, I came up with 4 pillars. You may not be able to see them because, your eyes are probably better than mine. That mental health as a science is relatively new. That's the first truth that we came up with. The second truth, that mental health was never designed and formulated to and for Black and people of color. It wasn't until the 1970s in New York City. It was up until the 1970s that Black people were used as experimental subjects to diagnose white people for mental health with psychotropic medication. That's what, 50 years ago. It's not that long ago. The third truth, that we need to reconnect and incorporate ancestral and indigenous healing practice with Western psychological constructs to address mental health in our communities to achieve a whole person type of evaluation, diagnosis, and treatment. Even the WHO and the European Union Commission on Health have come to the conclusion that to address our mental health requires not the singular individualistic approach. It requires a comprehensive, holistic, environmental approach. It is all the things that surround you contributing to your mental health. That, in fact, research is telling us today that your mental health is actually the neurobiological construct of mental health is less than 5%. That in fact, the majority is your environment and how that impacts you. Huh? What do you say?
We were talking.
The truth that we did. Right.
Okay. The fourth truth, that mental illness and health among our communities manifest differently. It looks different. We know those of you who've been to the US, and I think some of US might be coming down here, you have a parking spot with a disability sign, right? A wheelchair. And you see somebody put a tag up on the rear view mirror that says that they're disabled. When that person jumps out of the car, you expect to see the person with a walking stick, a walker, or a wheelchair. You don't expect to see that person walking strong. That person could be struggling with a disability, including a mental illness, because not all mental illnesses are visible. Not all mental illnesses are apparent. Right in this room right now, I don't know who's struggling with a mental illness. You dress and look good, your hair look good, you're smelling good. But none of us know who's struggling with a mental illness because it is not apparent. And there are a number of reasons why it's not apparent. We are afraid to let other people see. We're afraid to say to someone, can you help me? I need help. We are afraid of being judged. We're afraid of being stigmatized. We are afraid of being ostracized. Okay? So, like I said, the Institute's timeline. So this is where we are. We are coming up in November. This forum this afternoon is intended to introduce the Ancestral Institute to you and to invite you, the University of Belize, the Institute for Indigenous Languages, and any other departments to join us in November, because this year's Ancestral Institute will be focused on looking at the many different ways in which both Mayan and Garifuna communities, their indigenous healing rites and practices can be fused with contemporary psychology to give us a mental health that we can understand, that we can empathize with, it, we can connect with, that resonates with us. Because that's the purpose of the Institute. This is, so we did last year in Puerto Rico in collaboration with the Taino communities. And one of the most beautiful things that came out of that experience with the Taino communities is that Columbus landed in the so-called West Indies in about September 1492. And the Taino's communities were forever changed. They maintain we were not conquered, we were suppressed. We collaborating with them last year was 524 years connection. We were reaching back 524 years to partner with them, to learn from them how they take care of themselves, what rites, what rituals, what practice. They took us to one of their sacred sites, Abate in Caguanas in Puerto Rico, and showed us a ceremony. And one of the interesting things that I have come to see and learn is the similarities across cultures. Drums, incense, food, dancing. Next year, we are collaborating with the indigenous communities in New Mexico. We are collaborating with 18 Pueblas, 2 Navajo, 1 Blackfoot, and a Choctaw to host this institute in New Mexico, to learn from the indigenous communities there how they take care of themselves and add it to the institute. So this is what we started with in 2022. This is in 2023, and that's in 2024. These are just some images from 2023, from 2024. These are libation ceremonies these are all Taino. This is an African American. This is a Haitian. So I'd like to introduce you to our team, because clearly I can't do this by myself. And as a matter of fact, we know in our own communities that nothing can be achieved by one person. It takes a village, it takes a team. And so let me introduce you to my team. There's Dr. Obari Cartman sitting right here, okay? There's Ifashine Ifunyemi, just walking across, okay? Just walking the runway. Dr. Angela Flowers, where's Angela? Oh, hello, jump up and shout.
Hello.
Okay. There's Michelle Irving. Michelle. Okay. There's Delmer. Okay, he just got dragged in the last minute, but you know. Well, don't worry with this person, you forget that man. This is Dr. Keith Watts over here. And Dr. Ya Ilom, who's supposed to be coming, but I don't know if she made it. Okay, this is our team. These are the people who helped to plan this institute. All right? So thank you, and I look forward to welcoming you in November. If you are able to, use your phones, scan this QR code, and you can go straight to the Institute's website. Okay? And you can submit and sign up so you can be informed about what is happening, when it's happening, and who it's happening with. Are we good?
Yes, sir.
How y'all feel?
Good.
I know, right? Why don't say that so loud, because people say you're competing with me. All right, and I'd now like to turn this over to Dr. Cartman, who will introduce the panelists, and we will begin our discussion. Dr. Cartman.
Yes. Can y'all join me up here? I'm not gonna do the presentation, so we're just gonna open the circle. You could actually possibly come over here so we can see everybody. We're not gonna need the screen no more. Dr. Angela, Mama Michelle, Sister Kashina, my brother Delmar. We're gonna have a discussion. Good evening, everyone. My name is Dr. Obari Cartman from Chicago. I am a psychologist and do have a doctorate that I'm not necessarily proud of. I got a PhD in white psychology. I had to read a bunch of old white men come try to do help for my people. And a lot of the stuff that I learned that I was trained to do was inconsistent with the things that people needed. So I'm very grateful to be in spaces where I consider the experts live in community, in the forest, in circle. I really believe in the communal wisdom. When people come together, I think we can solve all the problems that we have. And so I wanted to hurry and get through, skip the presentation, go right to the conversation with the panelists so that we can have time to hear from you all too. We have to schedule till 7. Some folks have to leave early. So I wanted to make sure we get everybody engaged and involved in this conversation. I'm from the States, and so we have had a long tradition of Black folk trying to figure out how to emancipate ourselves from mental slavery, as Baba Marcus Garvey has instructed us to do. And it's a challenge. Like even my name, I say Dr. Cartman with some shame. I'm still embarrassed that I carry my slave owner's last name and gave it to my children. Like I'm embarrassed about my name, right? When I think about what it means for us to be liberated and whole and well, and there's so many things that are delegitimized that we have to do for licenses, for trainings, for CEUs, for accreditation. The institutes have created a ecosystem that we have to depend on for capitalism in order to pay bills and to go to schools and get the degrees. But so much of it takes us outside of ourselves. And so I've spent so much of my career trying to unlearn things and relearn things from elders. I got initiated into a spiritual system for the Yoruba people. I traveled the world trying to find out what the medicines that were removed from us are. Someone tried to trick us into thinking it was demonic and backwards and primitive, but there's so much sophisticated wisdom and healing practices that I know exist even in the room. And so I just wanted to open the floor so we can get to that. Before that, we want to hear from our panelists. we are coming from the States. I'm from Chicago. Antoine's from New York, from South Carolina, Connecticut, somewhere, a bunch of different places. So we couldn't come to Belize and say we're gonna, do this work without involving the community. So we found some really brilliant educators, leaders, healers, scholars, to help us unpack some of the things that are happening here in your context. What are some of the things that we've learned in the States and Guyana and other places that work and don't work? How we can really manifest the cross-cultural collaborations by bringing best practices that, again, don't come necessarily from what I learned at school, but come from lived experiences. So we got some brilliant folks to hear from. I'm excited to open the floor to them. We just want to do some quick introductions so y'all can know who is in the room. We're going to start from my right to the left, and we're going to ask them to share who they are, what work they're doing here in Belize, and what are some of the, I'll say, cultural technologies that connect their work to the wellness conversation we're having today, so that we can really start to piece together what are the pieces of this tapestry that exists in this room, so that we can formulate our own frameworks and diagnoses and technologies for healing that we know work and have worked for thousands of years. So we want to start to introduce what are the resources we have in the room. So introduce yourselves, say what organizations represent, what kind of angle you bring to this conversation, and what specific spiritual, cultural technologies connect to the wellness conversation and needs that are existing here in people of Belize. We'll start with you, Mom.
Hi, thanks very much, Barry, and welcome and greetings to everyone. I'm happy to see some familiar faces in the room, and I'm seeing some new faces, so welcome. Nice to meet you. My name is Michelle Irving. I live and work in Dangriga, Belize, but I work throughout the country and I think halfway over the world. So one of the main things I think that really attract me to think about, our indigenous systems and our way of life, our natural environment as well. And when Delmar came in, we had a small discussion talking about where he lives in the mountains. He said, I live at the feet of the mountains, and that is my mental health medicine. And I like to think that also because I live in Dangriga by the sea. And I think that is our mental health medicine remedies. But more importantly, I think who we are, who we identify with, who we are as human beings, our community. I think that is very, very important. For myself, I work with women and girls in a Garifuna community. And therefore, that must be front and center of our expression. And it is important for us to be empowered, be enriched, and be proud, be prideful, and knowledgeable about our communities, the things that we do, that the stories from our grandmothers, the legacies that we have, and sometimes having to translate that, sometimes having to explain that, or sometimes having to put that in a place of pride and a position of pride. Because basically, when we see each other, that's how we show up. And we shouldn't change who we are to be accepted, to be loved, to be respected. We should show up genuinely and be proud of that. So quite some time ago, I've been doing this for like 30 years now. Quite some time ago, I started really working. My sister is right here, Eva. I have Dr. Arana Petra also. Started working with girls. Because we realized, I remember somebody said, Michelle, well, all the disconnect that women have started in girls, as being girls. And looking for them to really take on that pride. We have teacher Emily, she came, she visited with us one 19th. And that pride, I remember a little girl, some girls, the last time we danced and we sang, they would get together and learn songs, learn stories, different traditions, a Garifuna traditional ways for them to be empowered. And those girls came up with me from little girls. And they have one, Ruthie she would wave the flag. And Ruthie waved that flag from she was this high until she was high. And finally, they were like, Miss, we want to parade without shoes. I was like, no, you can't go without shoes. How could you parade on the 19th without shoes? You have to wear, you have to have footwear. And they were like, no, miss, no, that's not the traditional, that's not our tradition. We walk about, we are earth people, we let our feet feel the earth. And here we are, 19th man, I'm half sleeping because it's about 6 o'clock in the morning, arguing and saying that, finally I said, well, this is a safety issue. Antoine was talking about insurance, you're going to get caught, something will happen. And finally I said, no, that's our tradition. That's our tradition. We walk, we feel the earth. We know what's there. And I gave in. And the girls, they marched through the street. I was just showing Eva some pictures. They danced through the street, sang through the street, with pride and joy and knowing who they were. And so sometimes children take up that space to teach us. Yeah. And let us understand that. And it's true. It's very true. And we grew up in a community where a lot of people were fisher folks, right? Or farmers. And really they went to sea and they went to the farm barefoot. And just giving that story of connection and understanding your history and yourself and having full confidence and pride for who you are as a complete person, as a whole person, not only a physical person, but a spiritual person as well. And I think when we talk about mental health, we need to always connect the spiritual side, because I think that's how our indigenous traditions reflect what we know as mental health. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I am Ifashina Efunyeme, that's my name. And I greet you in the language of my ancestors, my Garifuna ancestors. And I take this opportunity to invite them in our midst, and I would like for you to also invite them, your ancestors, to be here with us. It's just not appropriate for us to be talking about ancestors without inviting ancestors to be present. I know mine are with me because I asked them to be here with me from the time I left home. But I am inviting them consciously to this space with you collectively so that they guide our discussion this evening. I am an educator and journalist by profession, and I'm also an advocate. So being a part of this kind of gathering, sharing this kind of information is what I was born to do. I don't have a Garifuna name, I have a Yoruba name. That was a conscious choice that I made as an adult, and it was embraced by my Garifuna ancestors. I know this because in the Dabuyaba, at our family dugu we were having for our maternal ancestors, my maternal great-grandmother, when she came through, my grandaunt, she called me by both the name my mother gave me and also by the name Ifashina. So that made it very clear to me, even though my family and other members of the community had their own challenges about me having this African name, as Ifashina is a Yoruba name, they had issues with it. The living had issues with it. But the Ahari didn't. The Ahari our ancestors, my ancestors didn't have an issue with it. And so I embrace all of my heritage, all of my ancestors, including those that came from the continent of Africa. The Garifuna people and culture originate from Urume, which is St. Vincent, an island in the Caribbean. But the African component of our ancestry comes from the continent of Africa, and I embrace all of who I am. And like I said, following Yoruba tradition, in keeping with their tradition, your name speaks to your purpose. So Ifa opens the way for me. Spiritual guidance opens the way for me. Ancestors open the way for me. My life cannot be lived well or fully without following spiritual guidance. The minute I don't follow spiritual guidance, then my life is in disarray. It's that simple. And as long as I feel like I'm in disarray, I know that I need to get grounded, and I got to get back to the root. I got to get back to my ancestors. I got to get back to sacred space. So in terms of healing and maintaining mental health and wellness, it is my connection to my spirituality that has done that for me. Facing any and every challenge in my life, it has been spirituality. It has been my ancestors that have taken me through. And I have so many stories, but I can tell you one simple one. On my way to Jamaica when I went to study, I lost all my luggage. But I had taken the items to set up an altar, because that is also very important in both Garifuna culture and Yoruba culture, having an altar. And I had the items for my altar with me. Those stayed with me. That got me through Cuba and to Jamaica. I couldn't go through the United States. I didn't have a visa. So even though I did not have my luggage, but I had all that I needed for my altar. And I got to Jamaica. I got to classmates who were meeting me for the first time and helped me with everything that I needed. Toothbrush, toothpaste, soap, everything that I needed. And I was able to get through my entire 3 years studying in Jamaica because of having the support of my ancestors. It got me through every challenge. And some people with less, they didn't have as much of a problem, but they returned to Belize, couldn't handle the stress of being in the university setting in a different environment if they had lost their luggage. And I survived that. I still have not seen my suitcase since then. Yeah, and it was, the biggest size suitcase. I took everything because I thought, I would have to be in Jamaica for so many years. That's what I was thinking. I have not seen that suitcase since September 2005. So it's basically almost 20 years ago, right? But here I am. I have my degree. I now have a master's degree, and I continue the work that I was born to do. And it is because of my ancestors. So I'm very happy to be in this conversation, and I look forward to more of the sharing. Sermon.
Hi, good evening once more. My name is Delmer Zip, and perhaps that's one of the reasons why I'm involved in culture and heritage safeguard and also promotion. I say this simply because Delmer means in Spanish, from the sea, and Zip means writer in Yucatec Maya. Now, I've been involved in promoting Yucatec Maya and Garifuna and other cultural connections and activities. But it all stemmed from my experiences perhaps when I was 13, 14. And I go back to my name. Why? Because growing up, I have a Spanish name, Maya surname. I come from a Yucatec background, arguably one of the most assimilated Maya groups in the country. So I was confused. In other words, I didn't know, where do I fit? Am I Yucatec Maya? Am I Mestizo? Am I Central American? Where do I fit? And I grew up in a community called San Antonio where we had different practices going on. Particularly, there was a festival, the San Antonio Day. And that festival had a number of different activities that included the hoghead dance. There were people talking Maya, there were people dancing. And from the time I went to high school, perhaps to when I graduated from high school, that had disappeared, gone completely. In the span of 4 years, it was gone. And I felt that something was missing. My part of my identity was gone with it. So I felt a disconnect, I felt an imbalance, and my wellness was not okay. Right? And that's partially one of the reasons why I came to the University of Belize to study history, because I wanted to connect, I wanted to have that sense of reconnection with my heritage, and also learn from these stories so that I can feel fulfilled. But that led me many directions, to many directions. Today, I am the vice chair of this Another Beautiful Day in San Antonio committee, which is actually an effort to bring back this particular festival. And that perhaps I should explain a little bit about this festival. San Antonio is one of the Yucatec Maya communities. It has actually the most Yucatec Maya speakers in the country according to the recent census. Yet you notice that certain expressions are not openly shared. And what is happening is that a lot of that is disappearing. And for some context as well, San Antonio was also the home of Dr. Don Eligio Pante. So who took up all of those healing practices? Who learned about that? Who shared that? By and large, a lot of those bodies of knowledge are disappearing. And we felt that it was important to have at least this festival as a way of having or bringing back that cultural pride, but also through that festival, highlight different aspects of our heritage. So every year, we have language and culture being central celebrations, but we try to couple it with different concepts of who we are to bring it back. We've had water conservation, really trying to allow the youths and also the community at large to connect with the water and see how water is very important for our community. Our community doesn't have a river, by the way. So water protection is very important for us. Another year, we looked at wellness. But upon getting this particular assignment of thinking about wellness, I realized that we thought about a walkathon. Would our ancestors think about a walkathon? Is that really a concept that we would have thought about? Perhaps not. But it offers some level of reflection there. This year, we looked at food. And that's something that is very important to me, because when we looked at food, we were trying to understand foods that are disappearing in our community. So we set out to go within the community, we put out a call to identify 3 foods that are disappearing. And we went to 3 different households and they began to tell us about a particular food. We had something called KM, which was a drink that the Maya drank. We had something called, cannot recall the actual pronunciation right now, but it's brown pepitos, sikilpak, that's the name. And one of the things that people told me and told us throughout all of these interactions is that all of the ingredients for these foods were right in their garden, right around them. And one of the reflections that they left me with was, look, you're looking to safeguard the knowledge of only how to prepare this food, but this food is connected to the environment, is connected to all of these other elements that belong to our wellness. Okay. So when you talk about food and food safeguard, you're really talking about a holistic development, because we respect the land, we respect the environment, and we respect and we live in an ecosystem for our well-being. We were understanding it in a different way. We wanted to document the food for it to be passed on to our different generations. And that's perhaps the other point that I want to highlight. Our efforts have really been focused on how do we make the youth connect to this heritage that is disappearing? How do we make them understand that as the days go by, that as the elders go by, we are losing a lot of the doctors, really. We're losing a lot of the doctors at the community level. On another note, I also wear the cap here at the University of being the coordinator for the Intercultural Indigenous Language Institute and also a history lecturer here. And one of the missions that we have here is that we want to open spaces like these, really to have the community and the academic spaces begin to have that dialogue and have that co-production of knowledge in an equitable space. But also one of the goals of the Institute itself is to empower students, Indigenous students. And I'll give you this story. There was one of the students that came to the university, a Garifuna student. He came dressed with his, what's the name of it? With his dashiki. And he said that as he stepped into the campus, about 3 students stopped him. Where are you going to perform?
Oh, sure. Yes. Yeah.
What you see there, that's a space of power.
Yeah.
And just the fact that he's bringing his dashiki, he's contesting that space of power.
Correct.
And what we want to do at the Institute is really to tell the students, look, you don't have to give up your identity, your wellness to get an education at this university or at any university. You can be Garifuna and have a doctorate degree and be proud of that. You can be Maya, you can be Creole, and so on. So that's one of the goals that we have at the Institute. But perhaps I am talking too much. I really want to give him, my partner also as well, an opportunity.
Great place, though.
Thank you, Mr. Sim. Good evening. My name is Angela Flowers. Like everyone else, I also have an African name. So if you know me, you also know I go by Dabafe, and that's a Senegalese African name. As I'm sitting here, I was told that this space is colonization in reverse. Who knows about Louise Bennett? How many of us know about Louise Bennett? Probably. Colonization in reverse. I am a social worker by heart. I've always been a social worker. Social work chose me. I didn't choose it. I have been doing this for 30 years. And I remember being a child and seeing and hearing things and didn't know what I was seeing and didn't know what I was hearing. And as I matured, I continued to have those experiences. But I dared tell no one. Because guess what am I saying? Right. It took most of my life for me to understand why I'm here, my purpose, and who is guiding me towards my purpose. And it took me a lot of pain and trauma to get to where I am. And I have witnessed a lot of pain and trauma. My family, my students, my clients. And sometimes I am very disheartened because sometimes I feel like, what are we doing? When are we going to get this right? But it's spaces like this, it's conversations like these that allow us to start. The story that you gave, Delmar, about taking your power, about the young man wearing his dashiki. I remember my son coming home to me crying because he took his African wear that he got from Senegal and that he was so proud of and marched his way to school. And he was teased. And I was angry. I'm going to beat up on any pygmy. But then I said, son, make this into a learning experience. What are we going to do? How long are you going to cry? Because we've been crying. We have been crying for hundreds of years. And it's time to stop crying. No more time for tears. I said, so let's make this into a learning experience. Right. So we went to the teacher and we decided that we're going to propose a whole day of his experience in Senegal. And by the end of that day, the children were just in awe. These were kids who have never even left their block, right? They were in such an awe. My son gained more friends, and friends because they wanted to know more. And that made my heart swell, to know that the little ones wanted to know. And coming back to the experiences that I used to have, or I still have, I did not understand that my ancestors have always been speaking to me. Always. I was chosen. And I'm no longer afraid to say that. I am no longer afraid to tell my story and to listen to other people's story. Because that's the only way we will reverse our current situation. That's the only way we will have colonization in reverse. So thank you for coming, for being here with us in body and spirit. And for the people who are not here, who wanted to be here, who are online, thank you for giving us this time. Thank you for letting us know that the work has begun. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm gonna go with one more question we do around for this, and then I want to open the floor. I would love to hear from y'all. We are planning a conference that we want to be meaningful to you. So their resources, their needs, we want to make sure that we hear from y'all about what experiences you would like to have in November, not even that far from now. But there was a moment we were in the Mayan Center yesterday, meeting with Miss Aurora and her husband, I forget his name. Sasaki. She was telling a story that broke my heart. We were part of what we want to do for the conference is plan an immersion experience where we see some of the ceremonies of the Mayans and hear about some of the meaning of the movements, the dance, the medicines, and all those pieces. And she talked about a drum ritual that's a part of a healing ceremony that she wants us to experience. And she said there's 2 living drummers left. There was 2 flute players, and now there's just 1. And she talked about the struggle of what it meant for her to teach those rituals to the next generation, to preserve these medicines and these power. And I felt the sadness of the moment of this thousands of years of cultural continuity ending potentially in this generation, right? I felt very, very sad. So one thing we want to invite you to is to experience some of this, because it might not exist soon. And 2, the question that I have for the group is, what do we do about cultural transmission in the moment, right? We Zoom in, we TikTok in, we using technology right now in ways that I think are useful. And there are also ways that the technology is taking my children's attention away. I got 2 boys, they probably at home right now scrolling right now. They're probably on the iPad. Right now, their mind is just inundated with somebody else's agenda, right? And so I have a hard time getting my kids to pick up the drum that I love, right? Because they are distracted by all the things that are happening to them. So there's a dual reality that we're struggling with, where when Ms. Aurora talked about those 2 remaining drummers, my first comment to her was, we should document that, we should record that, which is one part of it, and we can use that, but like, I don't know that I would want those drums on TikTok, right? We have mass ways of taking some of this wisdom and sharing it, but then we compromise so much of the integrity of the sacredness of it with some of the technology that we're using even in this moment. There's something that happens when it's just us in a room talking, and we lose some of that right now by having to think about how to spread the messages. So I want to say, get y'all to reflect on that with me. What does it mean to be in this crossroads where the technology is moving faster than the community infrastructures can protect? And how do we pass on some of this power, medicine, wisdom to our children, our children's children, so that it does not die with us and get overtaken or compromised by commercialism in the expense of mass production of some of the stuff? Can you help me with that balance?
I felt it too. I felt it yesterday when she spoke about, just having the drums, Maya drums, first of all. And I never experienced that before. I never heard about Maya drumming, really. I heard about Garifuna drumming, African drumming. And so right away, I wanted to learn about it. I wanted to know about it. I wanted to see the drum. And, you know, because, well, the experience I would have had would be with Garifuna drumming. And now it's so much, you know, now it's just proliferating. I mean, I see in Belmopan, you know, kids making drum. I see, you know, every summer there is drum making classes, and we did even way back before it became, you know, like this now. And I'm happy it's where it's at. I mean, the only thing now we have to think about how to ensure that the trees that we're using, you know, are replanting. So I think that's the next step that we would have to think that we should be thinking about. I mean, the natural resources that are used, but we even went through all the steps to, we did a book. We did, I don't know if Ifa was there, but we did our drum making. I made my drum. I made my drum from bone. Because we have Nori and Data Rodriguez, the drum maker, Aston Rodriguez daughters who learn to make the drum. And in some ways, they break the gender barriers in terms of it was only men traditionally that made drums. But Mr. Rodriguez would have passed down his skill to his sons, but his sons did not take up the making, his daughters did. And they continue to make the drum. And now we see a lot of little boys actually learning to make drums from the women. And so I started to see, well, maybe we could do something as it relates to the Maya traditions, like what happened in Garifuna, because even the Wanarawa, for loosely translated into Jankuno, the dance, that was one of the projects that, you know, I did in terms of learning to make the mass. We had the mass makers, and so it quickly spread now. Wanarawa is very much popularized. Yeah. So I think we have experience in the Garifuna traditions and cultural utilitarian tools to then share with the Maya community when she said that. So I think that cross-cultural experiences and cross-knowledge sharing, we should definitely be, that's why we should be connecting with our indigenous traditions to share and to say, well, you know, this is how we have been able to popularize and to educate, and now we have children dancing in Narga, like you know, it's going out of style, so to speak. But that's beautiful. I mean, they have really embraced, you know, we have even a competition, but that's in December, you know, for taking the street dance to the stage. And we have to ensure too that we bring it back to the street, because there is some contestation there now. But that's something easily fixed, because the point is that they are dancers and they are willing to they're doing it. So I think that's why the conversation is so important and the cross knowledge and exchange to make sure we have the flute and we make sure we have those drums. That's like an urgent situation.
I'm going to add one more layer to this same question. But one of the things I'm wondering as we're talking about this is we're talking about going back to retrieve things and revive things. And part of the question as we do that is, how do we also do that while evolving the things? So you tell me a story about evolving. Humans, they migrate, they try, you know, we learn, we get new information. And so it's not, the goal can't just be to go back and mimic ancient Africa, ancient Mesoamerica. I mean, it has to be something where we are growing. I was in Kenya a couple of weeks ago in the Maasai village, and we were celebrating the culture and the ability to preserve it. But then I met an elder who talked about the trauma she still experiences from circumcision that she had to endure. And so there are elements that we don't want to just go back and pick up because some things had to die. Some things did not serve us. So all of it can't just be like romanticized in the same way. So how do we, it's another part of the retrieval question for me. I'm gonna add that.
That was a good point. We actually have to be very careful with all of our analysis when we're talking about recovery.
Yeah.
And there's no hands in the butt about the fact that we, the children of the sun, that's who we are, have to focus on our recovery.
Yeah.
If we cannot go beyond the superficial and surface, we ain't going nowhere.
Yeah.
There are some things that have actually penetrated our consciousness so viciously. And if we don't start to unravel those things, the only thing that's going to happen is that we're going to play games with our mind and become more traumatized. And it's going to pass to the children. And right now, all of us should be able to see what's happening with the children.
Yeah.
When I take a look at the Garifuna community, years back, I'm talking about years back, and I see what's happening now. When I see these, there are some people, I forget their names, dancers who are out there now, and I see copying those things. Give me some of the names. The ones who are undressing on the street and those kinds of things, and losing their culture and their hair. They're trying to do all kind of misfits with their hair, and then you do that, and then you have somebody drumming. All you're doing to that youth is adding even more trauma. And it's very beautiful to hear this conversation that's going on. But we got some work to do, and it is very serious. And unless we intensify our detoxing and purging so that we can heal to the level of creating a new breed of consciousness, we're at a serious state in our existence. We have the ability to do it. Our ancestors are definitely begging us to take our roles. Many of us are playing games about the ancestors, and many have different ancestors that really did not connect. We have to comprehend something very serious. There are two natures of energy. We have to go further. All of us are interconnected with our ancient Kemetic culture. We're all interconnected with that because that's what passed everything on to us at this point. And when we take a look at how we've traveled into different places and gotten to where we are, we have one basic common thing. We're children of the sun, and we need to connect with the earth, and we are part of a divine social economic family community, earth, wind, rain, and sun. We have been so traumatized by those intruded and invaded kind of vibrations that put something on us that I haven't heard anyone say anything. That's these religions. And I'm talking about the religions. I'm not talking about spirituality.
Yeah.
The religions that have been designed. I'm thinking about a couple of things. I'm thinking about the recuentos. And I don't hear anyone talking about it. To come up and say, we're going to take your women and your children, and we're going to make the most mischievous things that we can do with them. We're going to break your culture. We're going to bend you down to nothing. And when we get you to the least common denominator and you want to complain, we're going to shoot you and say it's your fault because you're rebelling. And it is not our fault. And we should do this, and we are doing this, and all of us got to comprehend this. We're doing this, and they're saying, we must do this in the name of God.
Mm-hmm.
And we're confused because there's two different natures of energy. We all get that sense. Order and disorder. Order and disorder. Order and disorder. So the ancestors of divine order are calling on all of us. And I really appreciate us coming together. We've got some work to do.
Yeah.
It's not
real quick, Barbara, I'm sorry.
cartoon.
Can you introduce you and your community? Y'all got a presence. You can't even y'all came in a room. You know what I mean? Can you share who you all are? And
I would like to take the honor of introducing. I appreciate the expressions of femininity because certainly there is a sacred ancestral feminine call. The mother spirit has called for the loss of her children, the loss of her mate, those who have been invaded. And this is something that we say, that sacred ancestral bond is mother and father, breeding family and reproducing, as it was in the beginning. Those are the families that have been ripped and torn apart. So we say of the first Genesis, this is High Priest Kwatamani, and we're the Kwatamani first Genesis tribal communal order. And certainly our origin is a shared origin. But each one of those various communities of those indigenous populations have also suffered invasion and intrusion. But we say never conquered, never conquered the soul of who we be.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
I'd like to take one moment to add one thing very serious, and I'd like us to just at least consider this. If we've gotten to a point, the most traumatic thing that has happened to the children of the sun, the most traumatic thing is to come forward with a mono nature, to come forward with a mono, macho, masculine nature and tell us that is our God and disrespect the feminine. Because there is no way in this earth any of us should give any credence to anyone who was not born from a mother. There's something wrong there. And we have to recover that. We're still trying to recover. We're still talking about healing, and we're still practicing those things that's going to keep us more and more insane. If you think of the trauma that has happened to a child, to any one of you, to think that God, he. And what about mama? What about she? Oh, he didn't eat now. He didn't eat now. That means somebody of a mono, macho, masculine, warlord culture has deified and given it to us, forced it upon us, and we're still accepting it. We have to deal with a yummy why. We have to deal with time. We have to deal with the wholeness of who we be if we truly, sincerely expect to get some healing done. So we cannot have this conversation if we're not going to talk about the elements of resurrected that sacred ancestral mother spirit. Who in here can tell me that you was born with outside of a mother?
I'm sorry, excuse me, I don't mean to cut you, but we have a panelist that needs to leave and he wants to say one more thing before he goes. Appreciate you.
So going back to the question, I would like to respond first of all saying that we need to act. That's really the first thing that we need to do. One of the things that my experiences have shown me is that sometimes we get too carried away, and because we're passionate about what we're doing with cultural heritage and cultural reconnection, and we want to see a deep connection from the onset, right? We want the youth, the children in particular, to connect and understand and see the things that we are seeing. And sometimes that carries us, we don't understand that we need to meet them where they are as well. We need to create opportunities, of course, with balances, where they are able to understand, they're able to connect, even if it's with one aspect, because that one aspect will create an effect where they will continue discovering what is it that I need to connect to. So for me, for example, even if it's a top game that we're playing, that top game may very well be a connection to saying, well, why are you playing that game? What is the story behind it? And they may very well go to their grandparents and ask, did you play tap? Yeah. Who did the tap in our community? What does it mean to our community? And that's how you have sort of an effect that goes beyond some of those experiences. So for me, one of the key methods there is to meet them where they are. It's crucial, because if we continue, and I mean, I'm talking about my experience, if we continue dreaming that, how we see things and the opportunities that we think are important, the children will connect to, sometimes we may be failing to see the picture of how do we relate to the younger generation in a respectful way, right? Obviously respecting the traditions and cultural views. Another thing,
because if we really trust our ancestors, that game is an entry point It opens the door that
Yes.
they finish the work.
They finish the
And it
work.
gotta be us all the time.
Yeah.
Bring them to it.
One of the things that I was just studying about linguistics and how do we create opportunities for the revival of language, but also culture. And one of the methods that I found very intriguing was the idea of creating language and cultural nests, where you would have particular spaces created where elders would go and teach the children. So the elders are the teachers in that space, speaking the language, sharing and living the culture. And the children are introduced to those spaces and they begin to connect, not in a classroom setting, not learning about the culture, but actually through living and going, speaking the language, learning about the leaves, learning about the different aspects of land and connection to land. The last comment that I want to share is that one of the things that we tend, and I say we, again, referring to my experience, we tend to look at it from yes, it's a Belize-centered perspective, but we also have opportunities in the region and in the globe. So I was asking if perhaps the drumming was my Apache, because if it was, it may be dying here in Belize. But remember, Yucatan is right there. And we were talking about Yucatec Maya, that's a big space right there. And actually there's a connection that we have with the Universidad Intercultural Maya. There is Academia de Lenguas Mayas right across the border in Guatemala, where they have Mupan and Quechua communities safeguarding language and culture. So again, their context is different. Our context is different. But there are certainly things that we can learn from each other and we can share with each other. So thank you.
Correct. Thanks, Deborah. Correct. Give me some points right there.
So what I'm hearing is already a pathway to how we're going to start addressing our mental health issues, right? Storytelling, right? Storytelling. How can we incorporate our what we call vibes into our daily lives? We have stopped storytelling. One, we don't function as a village anymore. We're disconnected. And that's part of experiencing trauma. Trauma caused disconnect, right? And so how can we reconnect? Storytelling. And what you see on TikTok, Facebook, and all, that's not storytelling. That's narrative being spun, right? And that has been creating a disconnect because our children are no longer listening to us. And when I say that, I'm not talking about being hard ears. They're not hearing us. We're struggling. And for those of us who do practice and use ancestral work, we cannot get through to them because they're disconnected. So how can we start telling stories again? Where do we start telling these stories? How can we get the community to be involved? As the old saying goes, no man is an island, right? We have moved away and we're all floating on our own little islands and looking over like, oh, that one over there, that one over there, and not communicating by words, spiritually, emotionally. So how do you think our children will be able to adapt if we're not giving them that? If we're not making a move to start addressing this disconnect? Call it mental health. It's a disconnect. And that disconnect creates other disconnections. It's like having a disease and then you have symptoms of that disease. So listening to, okay, we have the drums, we have the example of the tap. We are smart. We are just not paying enough attention. And maybe we are disconnected as well. But again, just being here means that we want to do something different. We want to address these issues that seems to be overwhelming. I returned back to Belize from the United States to statistics about Belize having a very high suicide rate. And I was like, what?
Especially girls.
Yes. A high suicide. When did that become a thing? In our country, in this little country. We look at the gang violence in our country. In one city, in Belize City, which makes our mortality rate high. We are up there in the rest of the world with a high mortality rate. What are the core issues of why our children are involved in gangs? And SOE is not solving the problem.
Nor the 13th Amendment.
No.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, we have to get to these core issues. What are some of the traumas that our children are experiencing that we are not addressing, that we have normalized? Or what we do, we turn a blind eye. They're not our business. Yes, it is our business because we are the village. When are we going to believe our own selves? But then again, a lot of us don't talk to the ancestors because they would tell you. When are we going to understand that sometimes we are our own worst enemy? And why has that become an issue? Why? Why is mental illness on the rise? Why is schizophrenia? Why is depression? Why is anxiety? Why? Because of the world we are creating. This world that we have created. And we got to start to undo it. And I'm not the first one saying this, because I've gone to other conferences and they say the same thing. But a lot of times what we do, we listen, we don't judge, and then we walk away. And then we go about our business, and then forget. And that's part of the other problem. We keep forgetting. It's a lot that we have to digest and process. We're definitely called to task. This is not about just talking and hearing and listening and saying, oh, that was good what they said. It's about putting it into action. You can't give what you do not have. I definitely give much respect and honor to my mother, Jacinta Palacio, who raised me behind Civic at 38 City Street, Belize City. And it wasn't easy growing up as a Garifuna child in Belize City, suffering the propaganda campaign that the British enforced to separate the two Black people of Belize. And I realized that growing up as a Garifuna in Belize City would cause one of two things. Either you embraced the culture for dear life and it empowered you to survive whatever came at you for being Garifuna, or you rejected it completely, again to survive what came at you for being Garifuna. That was my lived experience growing up in Belize City. I chose to embrace being Garifuna for dear life. And that has strengthened me to this very day as you see me sitting here speaking. I had the privilege of being able to stand at the fence where my maternal grandmother did her laundry and my mother did her laundry on our side of the fence under Hammond Street, and hearing stories about Barranco, where they grew up, and about the farm, and about whatever it was being Garifuna growing up in Barranco. And hearing those stories made me fall in love with Barranco. I didn't get to visit Barranco until I was 10 years old. I went there for a National Garifuna Council convention.
in 1988. And my mother took me. I went there by boat. It was my first experience on a boat from PG to Barranco. It rained a lot. We said it was because my mom hadn't been home for so long, so the village was crying. But I'm saying this to you, it's a story about stories. It's a story about Uraga and how important Uraga is. Now, the things I know about being Garifuna, I know because I sat down and listened to Uraga. I listened to my elders. I asked questions. What I know about Garifuna spirituality, what I know about herbs, because I would listen to my mother or listen to my grandmother or listen to some elder in the community. I visited with them. I went to the Dabuyaba and I sat with the Buyes and I asked questions and they answered those questions. They were willing to give me whatever information I wanted because I was interested. And I think that is the challenge we have, is letting our children have the interest. Telling them the stories that are our stories, not what they are seeing that is a narrative that's created. Now, my disagreement with you on the issue of social media is that we can make those tools do for us what we want them to do for us. Because in the same way that the neo-colonial system is using it to spin their lies, we could also be using it to tell our true stories. We have that opportunity. But it's what we choose to use the tool for. When the gas range was introduced, some of us gave up the fire heart, but that didn't have to mean giving up the darasa and the falumau and any other thing that was our tradition. The tamales didn't have to disappear with the appearance of the butane stove. Mm-hmm. If that is what you hold there, you will use the tool that is presented to you to maintain that which you treasure. And that is what we must give to our children, our treasures. If they don't know it, they're going to seek it somewhere else. And that's why they're going to aspire to be like what they are seeing on TikTok. But if you be who you are authentically, there are children around that will look at you and want to be like you. And I had a teacher that dressed in Garifuna attire at St. Joseph Primary School in Belize City. And I saw her in her Garifuna attire and she looked very professional, very beautiful. I prayed to God for her to be my teacher and she became my teacher. Indeed, God answered that prayer. And then she sponsored me for Miss Garifuna when I wanted to go for Miss Garifuna. And because of her, I ended up with 6 Garifuna outfits. I had never had a Garifuna outfit up to that point at the age of 14. And since then, well, I never out a Garifuna outfit. But I'm telling you that when you live who you are authentically, you then light that spark in the next generation. You do. And sometimes it's even people in your own age group, your peers. You can inspire them too by being authentically you. So find your source and then live that. That's all you have to do. That's your responsibility. Find your source and live it. And that is what you're going to emulate. That is what everybody will see of you. And I think that is how we're going to preserve what is precious to us. Sir Romain.
No, that's a very, very important point. We want the kids to get off social media and go pick up books again, but they lie in books too. Right? There's misinformation there too. So I appreciate the deliberate use of the technology. Yeah. As we wrap, we want to remind you to go to the QR code and follow our Instagram page and stay connected to us. I want to give a hand to our panelists again. Thank you so much for your. This is just a taste of the wisdom that we have in store. We hope y'all stay connected. We don't want y'all to run away. We got some snacks. We got some food. We want y'all to stay. If y'all have ideas about things that you want to see happen in November, please come share them with us. We are in committee and are actively planning, so please don't run. I have a couple books I can give away, so I only have a few of them about spirituality from the American perspective. So please stay, network, meet some folks. Miss Emily has okay. Yeah, I wouldn't want to respect our time. We said we're gonna close this at 7. We are past that. We want to make sure we respect us. So if there's any,
Pleasant good night.
Yeah.
I would like to compliment the organizers. It's a very good beginning and it is well overdue. For our Garifuna perspective, well, we usually invite our ancestors, and the contribution that I would like to make is music through songs. And so because I use songs because it transcends all cultures, and it is a very important medium for healing. And so I would like to share one of our Garifuna songs that invites our ancestors because of their knowledge and so on, and we use their knowledge, so it is also important for them to be recognized. And it goes like this. Ona babana, baba, ona babana. Aibiriwo, agabana, mugabu, mage. Ona babana, babo, ona babana. Aibiriwo, agabana, mugabu, mage. Libe biarat, babo, libe bisobusi. Ribiriwo. Subuseti buge anichigo, liba biarat, babo, liba bisubusi, ribiruo, subuseti buge anichigo. Okay, so music has been one of our healing source in the Garifuna culture and other cultures, even during slavery. Okay, our songs were the songs were one of the elements that keep them moving. Yep. So if we can compile, maybe have some of those songs being compiled in different cultures, maybe have one, because I don't like the vision of mental health being Garifuna, being Maya, being Creole. It's a united element that affects all of us. So rather than looking at it culturally, we can look at it in a way that we can use our cultural element, but let's look at it holistically. Because whatever it is common to us. So I would like to do that pitch, that we look at it holistically and use all, because a Maya song, I'll do it in Garifuna, we connect to it, you can feel it. Okay, so same with the Maya, same with the Creole. So we can use that as a medium to heal ourselves. Yes. Because we can have as inspiration that is only song, we don't have to talk. And sometimes we talk a lot. So we talk too much. So no more talking, we can go and we sing and the forum is over. And so let's use that as a...
We agree with you as a liberated person, and I think that even in talking, I think we could sprinkle it with the singing, the storytelling, the sharing, the drumming, the sharing in such a way that we all a piece of who we are is left there, or we bring a piece of sharing. So I think that is of maximum importance, and we had a forum in Dangriga, right? And we made sure we had a song, and before we left, we learned a song, a Garifuna song, and sometimes, of course, sharing with other cultures their songs and making sure that we acknowledge. I think the thing is just taking back those things that are ours and being very deliberate, intentional in it. And even when it comes to our children, because sometimes our children want it. I remember having a conversation with mother who her son wanted to dance, right? Remember that way back when? And who she thought, how could I share with another mother whose son used to dance, and he used to dance when he was very little, And I used to let him go with the drummers and the other group. You know, you have a level of anxiety, but we realized that, you know, pretty quickly that they had a community of drummers that took care of each other. And there were also a lot, even if we're talking about Wanaraga, there's a lot of mothering of women who protect dancers, who walk with dancers, who sing for dancers, who cheer on dancers, who mostly are boys and men. And so I think I definitely agree with you 100%. So thank you for that.
Yeah. And that is a beautiful way to end the political out. Thank y'all for the comments, safe travels, and we will be in touch about the next steps. Stay and mix, mingle, have some food, and we'll see y'all next time.
Huh? Oh, sure. Hello.
Thank you for everything y'all shared.
You guys are be come and share. Just a little snack. Come and take one. Blueberry swan or something.
Things never happen in the world.
But it's a, so I know really, because I